Ahem. What is good, everyone? Hope you're having a great day so far. I am back with episode 2 of DJ Edit School here. Today, I'm going to be breaking down the DAW that I use, which is Ableton. This video is going to show you all of the tools, where they are, and what you need to successfully make your first DJ edit. If you like the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. You know, trying to get the YouTube channel popping here, because otherwise I'm going to have to start an OnlyFans page, and no one wants to see that. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, in this tutorial, I'm going to be going top down. So I'm going to be kind of just breaking down all the things you'll need on the top section, the middle, the bottom, and kind of what each thing does. So to start off, in the top right section of the DAW here, there is a horizontal and vertical layout that you can use. I prefer to use the horizontal layout. I can see the audio that I work with easier. You can either work in standard audio or MIDI on Ableton. I prefer to work in audio, so I have it typically in this horizontal layout. Now, on this horizontal or vertical layout, you can add audio and MIDI tracks. I'll be adding audio tracks here, so you can just use Command T, and that'll just add more audio tracks. Or if you just drag a sample right below your audio track, it'll add another audio track, and you can get other samples on the project that way as well. Another way you can add audio tracks is just simply by clicking on the right section here where it says audio and going down to insert audio track. So in this top left section here, you now have your metronome and your BPM. So pretty much everything that keeps track of tempo and the grid itself. On the actual metronome here, you can select classic, click, wood. You can even select the certain rhythm that you want it to tap on. You can even set the time of your actual project. So if you want it in 3/4 time, every time you open it up, it starts in 4/4. But if you want to change the time signature, you can do it that way. The one that I'm always playing with and using the most is the BPM slider here. So you can go all the way down from 20 to, I think you can go all the way up to 999. An important thing to note is you can automate the BPM in Ableton, which is really nice. Moving a little bit further on the top side here, there is the play, pause, and record button. Play, pause, pretty self-explanatory, but the record button is if you're working with MIDI, and let's say you have a keyboard and you would like to record something, or you're sampling something, you can then utilize that to then record any sort of melody that you're putting down on the project. A little bit further to the right here, there is a loop button. I use that pretty frequently if I'm making a redrum or if I'm working on a remix, if I'm really trying to get specific with a certain piece in the edit or song that I'm working on. I'll be using this loop button pretty frequently. And then the last two things over here on the top right section are the draw and keyboard button. So if you're really trying to get specific with automation, or if you're trying to draw something in, that little pencil icon is what gives you that ability to do that. And then this keyboard option allows you to then activate your keyboard if you're working on, like how I do. For example, I do everything on the computer itself. So if I'm just trying to play something on my computer, like J turns into a certain note, or G turns into a certain note if I'm just typing it in on my computer, if I have this button selected. Now, right under this initial top bar, there is what looks like a hollow rectangle. That is where you're going to be zooming in and out of the actual project file itself. So you see here, I can zoom in and out just by clicking on the bar and then scrolling up or down on my trackpad. Now moving down to the middle section of the DAW here, this left middle section here is all of your sounds, your samples, your audio effects, your third-party plugins. This is where all of that stuff is going to be. So when you're working on edits or remixes, the only things you're really going to be touching are your audio effects and plugins if you have any, as well as your specific samples. Ableton has a really nice search feature, so if you're looking for the default drums, maybe you find something in there you like, or you're looking for a certain audio effect and your eyes aren't working that day and you can't see anything, then you can just search for it. Now, right below the categories section is going to be your places section. This is where you're going to want to put in all of your samples, any folders you have. You can see I have a bunch down here, and if you're in Ableton and you're just getting started, it's really easy. All you gotta do is click the bottom button that says add folder, and then you can just go on your computer, search, like I would search my MacBook Pro, and then I would find the folder that I want, click it, hit open, and then that folder will then be at your disposal inside of the DAW itself. So now moving over to the middle right section of the DAW. So the middle right section here will contain your specific audio track features like volume, panning, soloing, or recording, or even activating and turning off specific audio tracks. Now in here where you see the C that stands for center, this is going to be your panning slider, so you can pan things all the way to the left, all the way to the right. I'll be going over that more in detail in further videos, but that is where your pan slider will be. The one you'll be using more frequently is your volume slider here, so you can go all the way down to negative infinity, which is no audio, and then all the way up to 6 dB. In this section, there's also the soloing option, so if you just want to hear one section of audio, you can click that solo button, and you can just hear the individual audio itself. You can even select multiple solo channels as well by hitting command, and you can just select multiple channels to solo if you want to hear more than one. Another way of doing that is just pressing the yellow bars on and off. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 you see there, that's the actual audio track. So instead of soloing, you can deselect or select those to then turn them off or on as you see fit. So like I explained earlier, you can insert audio tracks, but you can also insert MIDI tracks. You can do this with Command-Shift-T, or you can just select the audio section by right-clicking it, and then you can put insert MIDI track like I do here. Now, let's say you're working in MIDI and you want to record something. The red button has just popped up here on this right side. This red button says that you will be then recording to that channel specifically. So if I want to put down a quick banging grand piano here, this mastery solo that I've put together for you guys, you would then select the red record button on the right here, and then you play your beautiful Beethoven melody. That pretty much covers the basics for the top and middle sections of the DAW. Now, moving on to the bottom section, like I mentioned earlier, I typically work in audio and sample-based production. That being said, though, if you are working in MIDI, you will still be utilizing the bottom section of the DAW. This is where you will see the details of your audio, where you can get really specific with your samples, and this is also where your effects will be as well. So I'm just gonna drag in a simple guitar loop here. So now that my super simple guitar loop is sitting in there nicely, if I were to double click on the sample itself, then this section comes up on the bottom of the DAW. So for people who are working on edits though specifically, the only things you're really going to be doing with this is you're going to be playing with your warping features. You might be doing some transposition, which is basically just
changing the pitch.
And you may be halving it or doubling the length of audio depending on what your BPM is. So if you click this bottom section here where beats is, you'll see there's a plethora of options that you can choose from. This is where you get all of your info, your detailed info, I should say, on the sample itself. If you're working with edits and already mastered audio, so let's say you drag in a Cardi B song, right? You would want to put that in Complex Pro. To be honest, the only 3 warping things you're going to be using when it comes to making edits is going to be Beats, Complex, Complex Pro. When it comes to tones, texture, repitch, just forget about it. Just imagine it's not even there. Those types of warping is only going to be useful if you're working on a remix and you're putting on different bass lines or different pads or different things like that. Other than that, just fucking forget about it. So just a quick recap: Beats mode for warping if you're working with samples, complex mode if you're maybe repitching a sample and it's an original piece that's already been composed, it's like a full mix and mastered audio track, or complex pro mode for those fully mixed and mastered tracks that you might not be repitching. For repitching, maybe bounce before complex and complex pro mode. Sometimes it can be a little funky with higher pitch sounds, so just experiment and see what works best for you. Now, like I said, on this bottom section of the DAW as well, this is where your audio effects will be popping up. So let's say, for example, I want to add an EQ8 to this guitar sample. I would go to the audio effects section, which is on the left middle side of the DAW here, and then I would select EQ8. Now, to put the effect actually on the specific audio track you want, you can either drag it onto the audio track box, or you can double click the effect itself and then it'll put it on there. The main effects you're really going to be using when you're working on edits, if you're just using default Ableton plugins, is going to be EQ8, delay, and reverb. That's pretty much going to be it, and a limiter. Those are going to be the 4 main things you're going to be using. Now, that'll change as you progress more, and maybe you're using more specific samples, you're doing remixes, you're adding synths, you're adding drums, bass lines, and stuff like that. You're going to be processing all of this audio more. But for stuff that's already been mixed and mastered and these splice samples that are hitting like at very high volumes, you're really only going to be using those 4 basic effects. Now, when it comes to effects, I may do a video on the effects and how I use them, but for now I'm just going to do a basic roll-off with an EQ8 here so you can see that the effect is actually working on audio here. So I'm just going to roll off a bit of the low end on the guitar here. Now, one thing that I really love about Ableton is that you can automate almost everything on this DAW. You can pretty much get crazy and you can draw in a line almost anywhere. You can change the volume with ease, the panning with ease. You can change the tempo with ease. It's very quick and easy to do in this DAW. That's why I think this DAW personally for me is my favorite to use for making DJ edits. So a good example of this is volume automation. I use volume automation a lot. So if you want to automate something in the DAW, all you have to do is right-click on that thing that you would like to automate, and then click Show Automation, and then it will give you the option to automate it with a red line that will pop up. Like I said, we're going to do a simple volume automation here on this guitar. I'm just going to right-click the volume bar or the volume slider, and I'm going to click Show Automation, and then this red line will appear. That is your volume line. So you see it says 0 dB. I'm just going to click and add a point there, add another point, and drag it all the way down. So now there's a nice little volume fade. So it goes all the way from 0 dB to negative infinity. It's as simple as that. This is also where the draw button on the top right section of the DAW could come into effect too. If you're trying to get really, really fancy, maybe there's something very specific you would like to do, you can then use that draw feature to then draw in the line specifically. Just to reinforce the point about how easy it is to automate things in Ableton, you can even automate when your effects turn on and off. A good example of this is, let's say you're DJing and you turn your delay or echo effect on or off as you're echoing out a sound and you're transitioning into a new song. Think of it like that, but these effects are in Ableton now. So I'm going to turn the EQ on and off on this guitar sample. So all you would do is just right-click on the on or off button, which is on the top left section of the effects here. And then you would just click Show Automation. And then another red line will appear with an on or off feature. So now I'm drawing in my on and off of when the EQ will activate. And it turns off right there. Now it's back on. So with automation, like I said, you can automate almost everything. Things you're going to be automating a lot when you're working on DJ edits is you're going to be automating the BPM a lot. If you're doing a transition edit, you're going to be automating your volume a lot. You're going to maybe be automating the panning, depending on the types of samples you're using. And you're going to be automating your effects, maybe a echo or a delay effect you're going to be automating. The only other thing I'm going to add here is there is a preferences section in Ableton. I recommend going in there first before you kind of dive into your first project and getting the layout like you want it. This is where you're going to add your plugins. You're going to change the color schemes. You can make it look all pretty, make it look the way you want it to look. The preferences section is located in the top section where you hit live. Preferences. There you can select your audio input device, your output device. I'm using Soundflower for recording. And then under the look and feel tab, this is where you're going to change your theme. So the theme is on the bottom section. There's 5 different options. You can make it light, which is blinding. You can also do mid light, mid dark, dark, and then you can even, if you used Ableton Live 9, you can use the Live 9 colors as well. The only other thing in preferences you might want to play with is your plugins tab. If you have some third-party plugins you would like to add, that is where you would do it. So on the plugins section, if you have a folder for it, it's as easy as just hitting browse in the VST plugin content folder or the VST custom folder. You can then put them there. And then you want to click rescan to make sure Ableton recognizes the plugins sitting in that folder, and then you can then use your third-party plugins. Oh yeah, another important thing that I forgot to mention is on the audio track section here, on the bottom section, there's a box that says master. That is your master volume and your master audio channel. You will not be touching that unless you're adding a limiter there on the very end of your edits. I will go over that in the future. I'm sorry.
Look how stupid I look right now.
All right, so that wraps it up for the basics of the DAW, where everything is, where you can find the different things you need to make DJ edits. And then finally, in the next episode, we're actually going to be going over how to make your very first intro and outro edits within the DAW itself. So you can start making your own intro and outro DJ edits. Other than that, enjoy your week, tell someone you love them, and I'll be back soon. Peace out.